AITA for keep talking over my dad when he interrupts me? My dad, 57M, has the bad habit of interrupting people, especially women. When we talk, he won't even ask if he can make a comment. He just starts talking over me. 21F. When I'm in the middle of a sentence, I find this extremely annoying, especially when he does it to explain things I'm in the middle of explaining or to correct me on things he has no idea about but I do. Lately I've been putting in practice not stopping when he does this. I just keep talking like he didn't say anything until he stops or asks me if he can say something. I obviously don't do this in a normal conversation where everyone has time to talk. Only when he talks over me. No one else in my family does this. And I have noticed my sister, 25F, has started reacting the same way I do when he interrupts her. I guess she grew tired of it too. My mom says it's disrespectful, but I find that his attitude towards me and my sister is AITA for doing this, and should I stop? Edit. I know I misspelled the word interrupt in the title, but I can't change it. Edit 2. I have been told I made more mistakes than just the word interrupt. English isn't my first language and I'm still learning. Sorry for that. NTA. I've had to use this tactic with people who constantly interrupt, and it has typically been effective. It isn't rude to expect to be able to finish a thought without someone cutting you off. Sorry if the middle of my sentence is interrupting the begin of yours, NTA. NTA. That's how you need to deal with people that do this. If your mom, dad tries to tell you that you're being rude, please remind them that it's rude to steamroll over people when you're in the middle of a convo. Ideally, your dad should be waiting for a pause in the convo. Do talk to him about it, if you haven't already. NTA. Get used to having to do this. It happens regularly, including at work. Have you ever talked to your dad about it? Not at the time, but later. NTA. No. What's disrespectful is being interrupted during a sentence. Your dad isn't special. NTA. Interrupting people is a super shitty habit even before you get into the sexist aspect of it. Keep doing it, and don't be afraid to do so in conversations with others. In fact, I recommend that once you finish your sentence, turn to him and say, "Now Dad, you were trying to interrupt?" Quote. So do need to be here for this conversation, or are you going to have it for both of us? NTA. NTA. That's the perfect way to deal with men like him. NTA. Your mother signed off on being treated like a second-class citizen by him. You didn't. Does your mother think you were magically going to be more respectful than he is? With him as a role model? He's just going to have to deal with it. NTA. Your mom says it's disrespectful to not allow your father to interrupt you? That's crazy person talk. I like your approach. Just keep talking while looking him directly in the eye until he stops talking. Asking if he can say something is still interrupting, and I would ignore that too. Just keep talking until he stops. Then go back to where it started interrupting and finish your thought. NTA. My husband talks over me all the time, and that is my favorite tactic. I plan to start using it on other people, too, when I'm out and about again. NTA. Might be too far, but I keep talking. And also wave my hand at the person in a stop motion. At a certain point you just have to stand up for yourself. NTA. In the past, I've stopped, let them finish. Then I look them in the eye and say, "I'm so sorry that the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours. Please Finish. I'll wait. NTA. I do the same thing when people act rude and interrupt me. However, if they don't stop, I just increase the volume of my speech. Not screaming, but unnecessarily loud while making full eye contact at the person trying to interrupt me. If they continue, I start questioning their upbringing and their level of education, often telling them to ask for a refund as their educational facility has failed them. And probably their parents as well, since they have never heard of good manners. NTA. I read about a study years and years ago which determined that men interrupting women is a learned behavior. Generally, they learn it from their fathers. But in the absence of a father figure, it is learned from society in general, since this behavior is rampant in the United States. So I taught my boys from a very early age not to interrupt. And not just women. Anybody who is speaking first. When they tried it with me, I said, I was speaking. Allow me to finish and you may speak then. As they got older, it only happened rarely because they learned the lesson quite well. But when it did, I used your tactic as well. My dad did the same thing. He would ask you a question and then interrupt you each and every time I would try to answer the question he just asked me. Or he would ask a question and then interrupt me and then answer his own question. He did this with pretty much everybody. It wasn't a control thing. I would get frustrated and say, "Are you going to let me finish my sentence? Why do you bother asking people questions if you're just going to interrupt them and answer your own question?" Or, have you ever noticed that you'll ask a question and then interrupt them every single time? Quote. His reply? He would get mad. NTA. This is a great way to handle interruptions. Father or not, he owes people common courtesy. NTA. Getting interrupted is one of my biggest pet peeves. At work, home, etc. I tend to just say, very loudly, "I'm sorry, the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours." And yes, I am petty about being interrupted because it happens so often that I just get tired of talking. NTA. I second the people saying it would be good to have a conversation about it. If he happens to respond really positively and promise to change his ways or something, great. I'm not holding my breath. From your description, even if he does, though, it's probably a lifelong habit. So don't expect him to just stop. What you are doing is not disrespectful. You aren't even interrupting him back. That would require waiting until he was talking, and talking over him then. You were just holding onto your right to finish what you were saying. That's just standing up for yourself. If your mom thinks that's disrespectful, I'm sorry, because that's a shitty thing for her to believe. It's also good practice for standing up for yourself and your right to speak in other situations. NTA. I love what you're doing. Keep at it. Drink some warm water occasionally to keep that voice of yours strong. It's admirable. A few people have suggested talking to your dad to see if he realizes what you're doing. But if you've been talking over him and he hasn't stopped interrupting, I doubt he'll take that conversation well. Use this tactic consistently. Even if his friends, extended family are around. It might shame him into being a better father and man.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.